Hi, it's Jack Hedges from the Humans Connecting team. Our podcast is all about serving, supporting, challenging, and inspiring you to become a connected human. The content of our podcast is of a general nature, and consuming this content is not the same as seeking individual advice from a connection mentor, a registered mental health professional, or a coach. Conversations about human connection address loneliness. We destigmatize loneliness here at Humans Connecting. We do that by talking about loneliness openly. Loneliness conversations necessarily include a range of topics which at times may be difficult for us to talk about, to hear, and to sit with. If, throughout our conversation, this is true for you, we encourage you to please contact a mental health hotline. The link in the episode description can help you find some immediate support for many places you may be in the world. Our advice to you is this: meet yourself where you are and how you are right now. If you don't feel up to it, we'll be right here ready to be by your side when you are ready. We're glad you're here. Let's jump in.
Hello, it's Phil. Welcome to the Humans Connecting podcast. Thank you so much for choosing to spend some time with us today. It's lovely to see you. And if this is the first time that you've pressed play on some content from us here at Humans Connecting, thank you. It's lovely to meet you. It's lovely to have you here. And whether you're a first-time listener or you've listened to some or all of the first season, it's just great to have you here for this episode, because this episode is the wrap-up of the first season of the Humans Connecting podcast. And it's a cracker. It's awesome. It's just going to be a really great conversation. Well, you're going to be joining us for a couple of really great conversations, is what I'm trying to say. I'm simply so excited that I'm really tripping up over my words, and which bodes well, doesn't it, for a podcast. But we're going to be having a chat over the next little while with two members of the Humans Connecting team, Jeff Bartlett and Pete Newsome. And I asked them questions about what their highlights were from the first season, and asked them for some advice if you are in the midst of a loneliness experience, or some advice and support for when you next experience loneliness. And even if you don't feel like you're feeling lonely, but you want to work on becoming a connected human, the advice still stands. But before we get into all of that, and I constantly do this, where are my manners? I'm Phil McAuliffe, and I am a global loneliness thought leader, and I'm the founder of Humans Connecting. And we here at Humans Connecting, we've got so many products and services to support you, the beautiful human that you are, no matter where you are in the world, whatever you do for a living, however you identify as a human. We've got some advice and support for you when you want to move through loneliness, or you've decided that you want to do connection, but you've gotten to that point where you're like, oh, I know that loneliness is bad for me. I know that this feels terrible. I know that it makes me just sort of think some horrible thoughts and feel some terrible feelings. I don't like it. And I also know that I need to do connection, but I don't know how to do connection. Well, we've just got so many products and services for you to help you take a step towards getting the connection that you need and deserve. And it's all right there. A click of the mouse away or a tap of the screen away in the episode description, which will take you to humansconnecting.org, which is our website with all of our products and services and just all of the wisdom and all the kind of stuff that you need to help you do connection. So this episode is the wrap-up of season 1. And what we've done here at Humans Connecting is decide to run the experiment. And incidentally, running the experiment was some advice that someone else in our team, Mona Potaka, shared with us about how to do connection. And running the experiment has kind of become a mantra around these parts at Humans Connecting, because I don't know, a little while ago when we were talking about doing this podcast and how we do it, I, for one, was just like, oh, how do we do it right? How do we hit a home run? How do we just, I don't know, get it right, get millions of listens and all of the kind of things that we'd like to happen for our content to reach humans wherever they are in the world who are experiencing loneliness and want to do something to get the connection that they need. How do we do that the right way that nails it the first time? And of course, that doesn't happen. Let's just be real, it doesn't happen. So the advice that I received was run the experiment. And so here we are, having run the experiment for the first season. And this episode is all about reviewing the first season, what we've learned, what's surprised us about some of the content that we've recorded and shared with you, and how that's affected you through the feedback that you've kindly shared with us. So we're going to be going through all of that in this episode, and I simply can't wait for you to join these two conversations. And the first is with Jeff, who is my partner. We've been together for a number of years. And Jeff, as he'll introduce himself in just a moment, is our social media and design lead here at Humans Connecting. And then after that chat with Jeff, I will be, you will hear the conversation that I recorded with Pete Newsome, who is our marketing manager here at Humans Connecting, and sharing their insights and what they've learned, and also some advice for you when you're experiencing loneliness. So that's how the episode's going to run. There's going to be these two chats, one with Jeff and one with Pete. And then we'll come back together at the end of the episode, at the end of the conversation with Pete, and I'll go through some of the feedback that some of you have kindly provided us. And then I'll just give you a little bit of an insight about what you can expect for season 2 and what we're doing in between times, in between seasons. So while this is the end of the first season, we're not going anywhere. We're still here. Humansconnecting.org has got all the things that you need. We're still here on social media. We're never far away for when you need some help to do connection. And when you are brave and courageous to go and do connection and you don't know where to start, you start right here. This is what we're here for. All right. Have you gotten yourself nice and comfy? Have you gotten yourself a cup of coffee, a cup of tea, a hot chocolate or something like that? Or, maybe even a glass of something stronger and a bit more grown up. However it is, I hope you're comfortable. These two conversations are absolutely amazing, and I can't wait to have a chat with you. I can't wait for you to join us for these chats, and I can't wait for you to join me for the wrap up at the end of the conversation with Pete. Okay, enough from me. Let's have a chat with Jeff. So Jeff Bartlett, beaming in live from the other side of our house. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you for having me. This is
Well,
awesome.
like what I said to Mona in our chat, welcome to your podcast.
Thank you. It's an honor.
So this is you just said before we jumped into the chat that this is your first time on the Humans Connecting podcast.
It is. So I should introduce myself, shouldn't I?
Yeah, it's only polite. It's only polite.
It is. It is. All right. Hello, everyone. I'm Jeff. I head up the design department at Humans Connecting. I'm Phil's partner, and yes, I don't know what else to say.
It's always a bit weird, isn't it? Introducing yourself and you're just like, yeah, like, what do you want to
Yeah,
know?
yeah, it's like an interview. Like I don't know how to sell myself. I'm me. I'm here. I'm here to get some
Yeah.
thoughts on season one, I'm guessing. Is that
Yeah.
correct? Yeah.
Yep. And yeah, so this is fun fact that all of the stuff that you see, so if you are a listener, all of the stuff that you see on our socials, on our website, and many of the comments and feedback that we get are all about, wow, your social media stuff is right on point. This is the man who does the point. And
It's all my fault.
yeah, it looks awesome. It looks awesome because if you are a listener, I'm many things. But one of the many things that one of the the fun facts that not many people really know is that I'm colorblind. And so all of the fun with colors, the color scheme, the complementary colors, all that kind of stuff, that's your doing, isn't it, Jeff?
It is. It is. So yes, I'm the one to blame.
And it looks good because if it was just left up to me, I think I would be creating some kind of like visual seizure for for people, perhaps. It looks fine to me.
I'll call it
Yeah.
a psychedelic fantasy. It'll be great.
Yeah. Yes, it's like Lucy in the Sky, all that kind of stuff. And I think just before we jump into the question I want to ask you, my love, is that um, what the like I was just thinking just a few weeks ago, there was the social media one where I was talking about like, and I think it was to do with episode 3, which was about like not being scared of your loneliness. And in that episode, I like went on this whole thing about like loneliness being like a gremlin under our beds and stuff. And really it was a misunderstood monster. And I think on Canva I found a monster and it was pink or something on a green background, and you came home from the office and you were just like, how about you go and get dinner ready? I'll fix this up.
There's a little encouragement.
By the time I came back, the monster had had a radical facelift.
Yeah.
Filters applied to it, so it actually seemed more green than pink. And yeah, like I'm like, it's a nice color. It goes well. So yeah, thank you. Thank you for, on behalf of a grateful audience for making things look awesome. Um, you ready?
Yes, I am.
Okay. So what we're doing in this episode, which you know, my love, and it's weird calling you Jeff, I'm just gonna say. Um, but so for the benefit of the viewer and listener who, you would have just heard, but in case you somehow landed in the middle of the episode and you didn't get the context, I'm going to be asking a couple of people from the team about their, like the things that stuck with them um, for the first season. And so, Jeff, love, what stuck out for you? What are the 3 things that stuck out for you in no particular order, but 1 through 3 seems like a pretty good way of going. But what was the first thing that stuck out for you from the experiment that was season 1 of the Humans Connecting podcast?
Good question. This may need to be edited a bit to make it more concise. There's a whole different. There was multiple points throughout season 1 which I gravitated towards, and I realized towards the end of season 1 that all the things that stuck out for me was reflection of my loneliness story to now. And what I mean by that is, with all the different presenters, even yourself and your story, with high school reunion coming up, there are always little snippets in every episode that I personally found myself in, or I could see myself in the story, or take something away that was specific to me. And I guess I'll go through those 3 points. First one was in episode 7 with Dr. Jeremy Goldberg. I'm looking down because I've got notes.
Ladies and gentlemen, he's so well prepared. I don't have notes. I feel bad. I feel underprepared. But yeah, no, look down, do your thing.
Good. So I'm right there with you, but I just need to refer to my notes every now and then. So episode 7 with Dr. Jeremy Goldberg.
Yeah.
So the listening to our Whispering Hearts episode, there was a point in there which I found putting myself in my shoes when I had a big transition point in my life. So when I moved over from New Zealand to Canberra, and the reality of life hit. But the quote that I wanted to say was this one. He reflected on a question that Dr. Jeremy Goldberg reflected on a question that was asked of him recently, and it was, what part of you is you? What part of you is a survival mechanism from childhood? And how can you tell the difference?
It's good.
That one landed hard.
How so?
So when I moved here and when I had that big epiphany, realization of where I'm at and where I was like in a transition period, where I could continue doing stuff the way that I've always done, almost blindly on autopilot, or kind of focus on this emotion, this feeling that I was having, which was loneliness, that I found out, and pursue that, or even look at it in its face and understand what that was trying to tell me, as opposed to doing what I've always been doing and ignoring it in a way. And this quote kind of summed up how I faced that transition. I was kind of pulling a lot of layers apart and finding out what made me, who made me me, what made me me, why am I the way that I am, and what was kind of ingrained into my personality based on a survival mechanism, based on a childhood experience or experiences in the past. And that's a hard thing to decipher, I found out. Still figuring it out. I don't think it's ever going to be something that's ever fully resolved. That was the first thing that really stuck out for me in season 1.
It is really powerful. It's just like, are you, essentially for me, what it was is like, are you what happened, or are you the story of what happened? And which is a really powerful, like sucker punch. Takes the wind out of you when you allow it, like to sit with it. That was a real, and it was said so quickly too in that chat with Jeremy. It was awesome. There was like so many things just sort of coming at us in that episode, wasn't there?
Yes. Yep. But that's the one part that really stuck out for me, and I want to give it more shine light back onto it. So.
Yeah. That's awesome. And what's the second one?
Second one was episode 8. With Peg Fong, and I'm sorry, I'm going to ruin this pronunciation. Guillermo Serrano. Yes.
Guillermo Serrano. Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, look at you. your Spanish is like your Spanish pronunciation's coming on in leaps and bounds.
Oh, thank you, thank you. But it was asking everyone who their favorite character in the movie Encanto was. I never really thought about it that much, but I liked Peg's answer, Dolores.
Mm,
And after her explanation of it and me thinking about it more, mine too. Because in a lot of ways throughout my life, I was, kind of still am, Dolores' character, where I like to listen.
mm,
Um, don't speak up much. When I need to, I will, of course.
yeah.
And this kind of linked back to a challenge that I set myself last year. You'll know all about this. But it was taking up space.
Mm,
So for the listener, I struggled with taking up space in all situations. It could be in a conversation. I always had to second guess what I was saying to make sure I was smart enough to be included in the conversation, or at work. I don't want to come off as not, well, I don't want to be wrong in a lot of situations, or I don't want to ask or say something that'll perceive me as something that I wanted to show myself as. Well, I wanted everyone to perceive me as.
yeah.
So yeah, Dolores, being the listener, can't speak or afraid to speak up, um, and possibly in a way to hide her eccentricities or her personality.
Uh,
Yeah, so that was awesome. I love that.
yeah. And again, that was a point in the conversation that kind of flew by.
Mm,
Um, and yeah, that I think what Peg said there from memory was that, in the similar way, like Dolores hears everything.
mm,
She hears a pin drop, she knows what's going on, and she can hear Bruno in the house and hear the grains of sand falling. And um, she can hear what the people in the village are doing and what they're like like in their quietest moments, what they're really, not what they're thinking, but what they're saying to themselves. She hears that, but she hears everything, but nobody really hears her.
yeah, yeah. It was just such a powerful little snippet in that amazing episode. It was
Yeah.
awesome.
It's
Um,
like there's also in the shower. That like 90 minutes of that episode, which kind of flew by in the recording of it, but yeah, like that episode, yeah, like that the movie Encanto was just such a um powerful example of how like loneliness can show up in lots of different ways and in the roles that we play, not just in families, but in the community, in with our friends, within ourselves, and like who are we?
mm,
Um, and if we're not this, and the the loneliness, and that's not often much talked about,
mm,
which is in the way that you just said there, um, like of being the observer, knowing what's going on around holding people's truths, but no one listening to you,
yeah,
or not feeling heard.
yeah. And
Yeah,
there's it's definitely a difference between not no one listening to you and not feeling heard. I think was the
yeah, yeah. I just want to come back to that point about not taking up space.
yeah, yes,
Yeah, yeah, because I think that that's something that will really. land with many in the audience because,
So,
yeah, and it's really powerful. Do you want to explain it just a moment, a bit more about
yeah,
not taking up or taking up space / not taking up space?
of course. So this notion, mantra, I guess it was for me, it still is, of taking up space is giving yourself permission to be present in all opportunities throughout life. And uh, for me, that for me personally, that meant allowing myself grace to fail in these opportunities that I may have never done before, um, and to speak up when I had a question without fear of ridicule or judgment. Um, and even to things of when friends offer to help, usually I would be the first to say, no, 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 I'm fine. I don't need anything. But when someone offers help, I take that as a sign that they see something that I may not see currently in myself, that I want to embrace that offer of help from a very close friend who clearly loves me and wants to help in some way or another that I may not know in that moment if I need it, but they
Mm.
know something that I'm not perceiving in myself.
And that is a really powerful mantra, um, and a reminder, because in many instances, and I think this is a rich topic, and I just wanted to underline it because it is such a rich topic that I feel so many in the audience will relate to.
Mm,
And because it goes to a really powerful reminder of the courage that it takes to do something different.
yeah, 100%.
Um, yeah, yeah. And it's this kind of like take up space, full stop.
Mm, yeah, no
Like,
ifs, ands, or buts. Like,
no, no, and if you're um in the US listening to that's like take up space, period. Um, but this is it. This is not take up space, can I? Um,
mm,
like I'm taking up space. That kind of, it's
yeah,
like I'm taking up space.
yeah. And it's thank you for bringing up that point because it's if you didn't know, I'm from New Zealand,
Mm.
and you'll know full well about the mannerisms of Kiwis.
Yeah.
But I was always brought up not being, not allowing myself to stand out above everyone, um, or to have too much attention drawn to me. Like you're part of like a wider whole in a way, like a wider community. So we all kind of level each other out. Whether that's a good or a bad thing, not too sure. But the repercussions of that for me personally was I cannot be too eccentric or too different or
Mm.
too something, which in the end uh, caused a lot of restrictions on me being able to be me in a lot of aspects of my life. Not so much anymore because I'm very happy to be me, and I know I'm not everyone's cup of tea, and that's fine. But yeah, it took a long road to get to where I am, but
Yeah.
in a lot of ways, that's where me and a lot of people from New Zealand, I can see suffer from that syndrome called in New Zealand. I think in Australia too, tall poppy syndrome. Yeah. Do you know? Can you please explain to the audience?
So the tall poppy syndrome is this fear that we have if we are the tall poppy amongst a garden bed of other poppies, if we're the tallest, they're the ones who get cut down the first. And so when we grow up here in Australia or in New Zealand or in the UK, particularly in those three places, and maybe more, you might be yelling at the speaker or at the screen saying, "Here too." If that's the case, let us
Comment
know.
that if that's you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like we can't hear you. Let us know if it applies where you are too. But constantly trying to walk this tightrope, this impossible tightrope, um, of being just enough, being good enough but not too good. Um, and that generally is how it starts. Like, I don't want to be too good, because if you're too tall, other people will cut you down. And here in Australia as well, this is like it's a bit of a sport. We like raising tall poppies, but then we also really enjoy the tall poppy being cut down. It's like you thought you were too good. Um, and it kind of it's not an attractive trait. Let's just say that for our society. So the other part of that, and that often comes up in that the thoughts and feelings of being too much.
Mm.
It's like, I can't do that because other people will think or might think that I'm too much. So I need to edit myself down. Right.
Yeah.
And then the other side of that impossibly thin line is not being enough. I can't go there because I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not um, popular enough. I'm not whatever enough. And it's this kind of national level, in this corner of the world, but like this national level kind of never-ending year 8, year 9 experience. So like, about 13, 14 years old, and we trying to find your way in the world, but you want to be great. But if you are great at something, you're not allowed to be great at it.
Mm.
Um, and so someone's like, "Oh my God, you're the best person who has ever done this ever." It's like, "Oh no, I'm actually okay. Like I no, it's nothing, and stuff." And we're constantly contorting ourselves.
Yeah.
And there's almost like logical conclusion to that is how like we experience, like you, like me, listener, viewer, like what we experience is just like, I don't know. You kind of have to go through life remembering lines. Like,
Mm.
how am I allowed to show up here?
Yeah. Which
And yeah,
sorry. Yeah. Which alters the perception of who you are in society, and which can like goes back to my first point. Like who are you, and who are you as a survival mechanism in these different situations that you've experienced in the past?
thing is, like, this works. It works. Like,
Yeah.
you get through it. You get through it. You might make some friends. You might sort of make some connections. You might have people thinking that you're amazing, that you're not at all weird, that you're just like perfect.
Mm.
Cost of that is that we can go through life feeling that we're an actor in our own life, that we have to show up in places and spaces as who we're meant to be, which becomes harder and harder and harder and harder, and taking up space. Essentially, it's just like doing that, like taking a big breath. I'll take the microphone with me, but like, this big breath of air, and just like, filling your lungs,
Mm.
and like dropping the shoulders, throwing the shoulders back, like chest proud, and with a bold, clear voice, like, "This is me."
Mm.
That's what it feels like, taking up space. And if someone, again, viewer, listener, if you've nailed the way of making that easy, let us know. Put it in the comments. But this is a lifelong practice. This is a lifelong practice, and it goes to the courage that it takes to do connection. Because when you do that, and Jeff, I have a sneaking suspicion that you can point to multiple examples of this, but when you do show up bravely and courageously and go, this is me, who I am in this moment, I'm taking up space as me, the connection that you get in return is what you actually need.
Couldn't say any better.
Gee, wonder why I have a podcast. Like, and we do this work. But yeah, like, oh my God, it's like shit your pants scary, isn't it? It's terrifying. It's terrifying because they're constantly like wrestling with vulnerability. It's like, I'm going to be me in this situation and I'm not going to be everyone's cup of tea.
And it's a daily thing. Like almost every morning not have to, but I do. I confront that first thing head on, and the rest of the day becomes a lot easier.
Yeah.
Because you've faced the harshest critic in your life.
Yeah. Yeah.
And my world is me.
Yeah. Yeah. Mine too.
Yeah.
Mine too. Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Like, there's such a rich vein of content in there, but I just wanted to come back to that point because I really do feel that will support you, viewer, and you, listener, when you're wrestling with that, like, moment of like, I don't know what to say. I don't know how to say it. But there's a choice in front of me right now. Do I speak up or do I not? Do I show up as me in this moment or do I not? Take up space. Take up space.
Yeah. Full stop.
And yeah, I need to actually get my notebook and write that down. But you know, when we finish this chat, like I'll put that on the spreadsheet of content to come back to in future episodes. But take up space. Wow, awesome. What's your third one?
Third one. There's far more than 3 points in season 1. I don't know. Third point was your story, actually. Yes. I think it's the thing about our relationship, and listener, viewer, Phil and I have been in a relationship coming up to 4 years.
4 years.
Yeah. Coming up to 5 years. Sorry, 5 years.
Oh shit! Yes. Okay, neither of us can get into trouble for that because we both did it. Time's just flying, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, just flying. Coming up to 5 years. Well, we can't be awkward about it because we're right here. Anyway, we
cut it out. Come on.
So let me start that over again.
This is staying in.
Oh,
by the
no.
way. Yeah, absolutely. Like, no time for perfection here. Like, this is staying in. Yep.
5 years. We've been together for almost 5 years.
5 long, happy years. Yeah.
So long. I've lost my point. No, come back. Your story. Yes, I learned so much about you through you being so brave and vulnerable through your high school reunion episode. And yeah, there were a few tears that were that I shared. Kind of embarrassing because I was at work at the time, but But yeah, I learned so much more about you than I thought I ever would. Because up until that point, I thought I knew so much about you, but
Mm.
then there's like a whole another layer that kind of came back on, and which made me love you even more. It was beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you. Um, I have to say, like the reunion hasn't happened yet. So what is it? It's
No,
now the end of April, 2024 that we're recording this. And the reunion is at the end of July. Um, and so it's a few more months yet, but yeah, it's been lovely. Some people have reached out and said how great the episode was, and how it's helped them um, recognize some of the sources of their loneliness and sort of the power of the stories that mm, we build around events.
mm,
And yeah, yeah, I'm not really quite sure what to say um, to that, because I kind of want everyone to listen to it to know that they're not alone, but I also don't want anyone to listen to it at all. But yeah, it's such a common fear, such a common fear of like showing up,
mm. Taking up
years
space.
after. Yeah, it's taking up
Mm.
space. It's taking up space, and being relentlessly you.
So thank you. I just wanted to acknowledge the bravery and courage that you displayed in that episode, and you did the hard thing already, and now it's out of the world. So your bravery is incredibly contagious, and I take that on every day too. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. All right, have you got a sneaky fourth? Because I'm not quite sure that the third one's awesome, but is there another one? You said
Yes.
you said that there was a quote. You said that there was a quote.
Yeah. So at the end of all your episodes in season one, you ask a question, and I
Yeah.
thought you were going to give me that question too, and I had pre-prepared for it. So can you please ask the question? I'm quite prepared for this. Okay.
I think in if this was like question time, this is me. Hi, I'm Phil. I'm a political nerd. But in question time in Parliament, if someone is invited to ask a question that they already like, it's all been pre-prepared and things like it's called a Dorothy Dixer. And so yeah, like I'm trying hard to make the Dorothy Dixer. But yeah, I actually hadn't thought to ask you that question. But yeah, like that's a good idea. Let's go with that.
Yes.
So Jeff, before I let you go, um, what's a piece of advice to the human who's listening, who's watching on YouTube, listening on a podcast service, and is just absolutely here for the conversation, and is kind of wondering how they can get through the time between the end of the first season and the start of the second season? What's a piece of advice that you can give them if they're experiencing loneliness right now?
Mm. So let me think about this.
Yeah.
Hmm.
You're just allowed to look at your notes if you.
Yeah. Quite simply, I had said this earlier on, but give yourself permission to fail.
Yeah.
Uh, it's a constant thing I have to learn every day. But once I gave and continue giving myself permission to fail, I am open to exploring new opportunities without hindrance or second guessing or it helps silence a voice that undermines a lot of potential in my head, just by simply saying you're allowed to fail, and that's okay. And no one has said it better than Samuel Beckett. I'm sure you're very
Yes.
familiar with this one.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's ever tried, ever failed, no matter. Try again, again, fail better.
Yeah. I love that. Or like I love that poem so much. And I'm not much of a poet.
No.
Boy, you said that a bit quickly. But yeah, and I find myself like, you know, that's really helpful for me too.
Mm,
And yeah, like, and what I really love, and I don't know if Pete's going to go to here, but for me, it's part of that the point that Mona raised in her chat. It's like
mm.
run the connection experiment.
Yeah. She's the one that actually inspired um, this reflection. So
Yeah.
thank you, Bestie.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So viewer, listener, Jeff and Mona are longtime best friends
Yeah.
from Hawke's Bay. Um, yeah, so this is I find that really powerful. And like at worst, what you get is data. You get information, data. Some of you listeners have said like it's data, not data, whatever, DATA. And yeah, you give yourself data that you didn't have before.
Yeah.
Adapt. Like if it works, yay. If it
Yeah.
didn't, you've given yourself information. And I think it's Thomas Edison said something along these lines of, I like in finding, I think the light bulb, he found 10,000 ways that it didn't work.
And
Um,
yeah, but ah, I hope one day society looks at failure as a good thing, because I do. In a way, it's one of the only ways you can grow
yeah,
and
yeah,
learn. Right?
yeah.
No one's born running as a baby.
No.
Yeah. Constant failure until you get up, crawl, walk, stumble, run, fall, get back up again. That's okay.
It's really it's so powerful because it compels us again, just like when we do connection. Like when we go to take steps beyond loneliness to do connection, it compels us to wrestle with vulnerability.
Yeah. And with that, I'm sure you've got a lot of products that can help a lot of our audience who may be stuck trying
Oh
to
yeah.
find ways to do that too.
Yeah. Yeah, we do. Absolutely. Absolutely. And like, connection inspiration videos are a great first step that speak to common times when we commonly experience loneliness in life. So times of change.
Mm,
And yeah, so yeah, it's ways of like running your connection experiment. Some ideas for you to help you craft your connection experiment. Should you need support while moving house or coming soon is like a like when someone breaks up with you or you break up with someone. Um, Middle age in a when you're like feeling disconnected and a bit lonely in a relationship. When if you're like for fellow members of the awesome LGBTIQA plus communities, like loneliness out of the closet and loneliness in the closet. Yeah, some great ideas to help you run your connection experiment, to try again, fail again, and fail better.
mhm. Use
I don't know
that
about
data.
you. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know about you, but like I would much rather have a meaningful conversation with someone who has, or any kind of conversation really. They end up being meaningful just almost by default with someone who's like, "Shit, I haven't worked it out, but I'm running the experiment."
Yeah.
Not, I thought about it and I knew I couldn't get it right, so nah,
Don't give it a try.
no, I didn't try. It's like, great story.
Yeah.
Great story. Or I did it and it was perfect.
Yeah.
Great.
Like where I don't know what deluded reality I had my brain wired into to expect that of me or anyone else. But I
You
like
would have,
yeah.
I don't think you would have expected it of anyone else.
No, I don't think so either. But I definitely expected of myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
Me too. Right. But it goes to that grace. And what an awesome way to wrap up your contribution to the episode. Thank you, Mela. But yeah, giving yourself the grace, give it a go. And not when the results from your connection experiment or whatever experiment aren't stellar, aren't going to have you written up in the pages of the New England Journal of Medicine or, whatever it is, that, yeah, you end up going, all right, well, that was a bit of a cluster. And that was a bit untidy and messy and that kind of steep. Um, yeah, that didn't go as intended or as hoped, but like I'm gonna dust myself off and throw myself into it the next time, knowing that that didn't work. But yeah, like and giving ourselves the grace. I think that's a beautiful point to end on, and I wanted to say thank you so much for tuning in. For you have that kind of privileged position where you get to I also hear the episodes, but also hear me talking about the episodes a lot.
And it is a privilege. So thank you.
And that's recorded now. And also the fact that we both forgot how long we've been together.
Yes.
This has been
Awkward.
an hardly awkward. I think we're giving each other grace. But yeah, Jeff Bartlett, thank you so much. Can't wait to have a chat with you like in season 2. And I think you need to come back out to the kitchen and we can have a cup of tea.
Sounds lovely. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
All right, stay tuned. I'll start the other chat with Pete Newsome in just a few moments after this break.
Have you ever been with someone, perhaps it's been with your partner, or maybe while you're at work or out with a group of friends, and despite having people around you, you just feel disconnected? And this is an incredibly common experience, one that I've certainly had many times. And when these things happen, we often don't really know what to do about it. Or worse, we think there might be something wrong with us for having that experience in the first place. Hi, this is Pete from the Humans Connecting team. And if you've experienced what I'm talking about, then you might find our Connection Starter course really helpful. See, these feelings, they're all just expressions of loneliness. And before I did the course, I didn't even realise I was lonely. And I certainly didn't see these feelings as an invitation to discover how I could become more connected to myself, more connected to my people, and more connected to the things that I'm most passionate about in my life. Now, the course itself, it's made up of a series of self-led videos, a comprehensive workbook, and a handful of external resources, all lovingly led and supported by Phil and the team here at Humans Connecting. By the end of it, you'll have your very own personalised connection plan that is specifically tailored to you and your unique connection needs. Look, it's made a huge impact on my life, so if you're curious about improving the connections in yours, jump over to humansconnecting.org and under the products menu, click on the Connection Starter course. because you are absolutely worthy of it.
Peter Newsome. Mr. Newsome, Pete, welcome.
Thank you,
Welcome
Phil.
back.
Mm, yes,
Mm,
it has been. It has been a little while, hasn't it, since the first episode?
yeah, it's like 10 episodes. 10 episodes, 10 weeks. And yeah, it feels very apt, very poetic that you're sort of bookending the season with sharing some of your thoughts. Um, so welcome back to your podcast. And regular listeners will remember you from your dulcet tones, reading out like some of the ads in the middle of the episodes. But just in case someone has landed right here, right now, and does not know who Pete Newsome is and how awesome he is, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. So I'm Pete Newsome. I look after the marketing here at Humans Connecting. I come from a digital background, so I'm a marketing technologist, and I'm absolutely thrilled to be on the podcast. But I'm also very passionate about helping humans connect and digging into our different drivers, what inspires us, what challenges us, and yeah, really creating more of those authentic human connections. So yeah, that's why I'm here, and why it's great to lend my skills to what Phil and the rest of the team here are doing.
Mm. Yeah, that's a really good intro. Well done. But yeah, it is that like with all of that, like just so grateful that you're lending and sharing your passion and your skills, your expertise with us as a team and also with the humans whose skills and insights you're supporting through our content and how they get to see that content. It's amazing. So thank you, Pete. It is just awesome to have you here. And of course, this isn't exactly like the first episode because in the first episode you interviewed me. So I've been keeping score of all the times that you've made me feel uncomfortable in that chat and asked me the big hard questions, kind of like some relentless investigative journalist. So I just want to like now it's time for payback. No,
Nice. Everything comes full circle. I'm
I
here.
know. So no, I'll go nicely. Um, so the question, like I asked this to Jeff just earlier in this episode, and I'll ask this one to you too. But I'm curious, what were, some of the like three or some of the highlights for you over this past season, this first season, this kind of, running the experiment season of the Humans Connecting podcast?
Yeah, it's been a really interesting and a really informative listen, working my way through the episodes and seeing what's coming up. And for me, I really enjoyed the actionable snippets and different people's feedback and advice on something they could do now to share around how to connect or how to cultivate that sense of connection, or what advice could be given to someone who's experiencing that sensation of loneliness. And one of the things I find really interesting is when people are put on the spot about that, it kind of takes all the research and all of the all of the hypothetical discussions, and some of that is absolutely beautiful and completely necessary. But then it brings everything right back into the tangible and right back into the moment. And I kind of like the um, I'm not going to say the discomfort, but almost the surprise where people are, oh, that's a good question.
Yeah.
I like that, because all of a sudden that just, that makes it feel even more real than some of the, it gets out of, and like it was shared on, with the episode with Dr. Jeremy, for instance, where, it goes beyond the canned responses, and it goes beyond, some of those discussions, and it really brings the human back into the present. So I like that. I also really liked the personalized stories, and getting in different people's worlds, getting in, some of the team members here, and hearing their stories, and some of your guests'
Yeah.
stories of challenges that they've navigated throughout their lives, and even the experience that you had as you approached your school reunion, and the different feelings, and working us through that process, I found to be like really beautiful, to hear how someone who is very comfortable, very competent, and aware of um, their own thoughts, their own actions, and sometimes how unhelpful those can be, and just working through that process with us. I found that really quite inspiring, and yeah, and it's hearing those vulnerable stories. It's hearing those moments of challenge, and what some of the different guests have overcome in their lives, that made me feel very connected to them, and I could absolutely see parts of my own journey in some of the different guests, and it was very nice to then see that, like, to feel that aspect of connection just from sort of
Mm.
sitting and listening to someone. So, they're definitely some of the takeaways that I've had from the season.
Mm. I think there's certainly what you're saying there and what I'm hearing, Pete, and correct me if I'm wrong, but there's and I'll go to like the second one first, but I love the expression, people connect through stories. And what I find really fascinating, and in a similar way to you, what I've found really fascinating is talking to people who sometimes like make a career out of talking, and or make a career out of researching, um, or whatever, and the power of both the information, the data, and what happens when that's coupled with the human experience. And unfortunately, when it comes to loneliness and human connection, um, we connect through the stories. And I say unfortunately because that's the hard option. That's the harder option because it requires us to be vulnerable, requires us to be open, risk judgment, all that kind of stuff. But, as my intellectual crush, Dr. Brené Brown says, we see vulnerability as a strength in others and a weakness in ourselves.
That's very, very true. I think that's one of the things that I like about my profession and marketing as well, because it is also about tapping into those stories, and and it shows the power that a story can have around something.
Mm, yeah.
Um, but yeah, no, and it's so true. It's so true. Looking at others, struggles and the things that they've navigated. And externally, we look at that and we see that as so powerful and such, like, that's an amazing person. They've overcome so much. And, but each of us, we don't get through life unscathed. And as you talk about, with loneliness being an experience that we all have, and it's essential for us to have, it's impossible for us not to navigate life. There'd be something very, very wrong if we navigated life without those moments of loneliness. And, so it's really powerful to hear others' stories. But, I think that's one of the things that makes this podcast so helpful, is that it allows us to see that power and then, while we may not be able to act on it during those moments when we are in a experience of loneliness, it's definitely something that we can still turn to as some inspiration for us to help us sort of just feel seen and feel heard and feel that little bit safer.
Yeah. Yeah. Dare I say, a little bit more human.
Absolutely.
And one of the things, sort of picking up on what you were just saying there, Pete, one of the things that I've particularly enjoyed is how we can see people, other humans, and I don't just mean like famous people here, like other humans, like the people that we work with, the people like our, you know, you know, not necessarily that we're intimately acquainted with, but we see other people around us, and we see the headline, and we don't necessarily see the story behind the headline, but we stop at the headline and go, well, that person's got their shit sorted. They're a success. They're doing this, they're doing that. And I feel one of the things that's really important here is that, they put their shoes and socks on just the same way as I do, and you do, viewer and listener. Like and in many instances, particularly in something like as abhorrent as loneliness, and working on loneliness, and the positive side of that, like working on human connection, is that almost without exception, we all have experiences where we've not connected, we haven't been getting the connection that we need, and how powerful that can be to change life for us. And one of the things, like, Joe Badcock said in hers, and I love this line of Joe's, and basically, paraphrasing here, but she's like, that just didn't seem fair. And there was like indignation. It's like, why would people who have, like, mental illnesses like schizophrenia, why it just is not fair that they expect to go through life with loneliness as something that they just have to live with, that they need to expect and prepare for. That's not fair. And that like that sense of injustice, and it's really hard to not like stamp my foot down and stuff, but I don't know if Joe did that. But and it's like that's not fair. That changed the world.
Mm.
Not fair. That's not fair. Like, helped us get a deeper appreciation of what loneliness is and how it affects people, all that kind of stuff. Like, she pulled that thread.
Yeah, I like that. And it speaks to me of, the passion as well, the passion that the guests have had around, around these topics, and and yourself, like, taking a stand for these people, for all humans that are experiencing, these times, and something that comes up for me, these times of loneliness, and something that comes up for me even in that, is it's fighting for, but it's also giving space for honoring, and really welcoming, in a way, those challenging conversations, those challenging experiences, those challenging, um, feelings that we have,
Mm.
and confronting them, but also, welcoming discussions about them, and spreading that message, even wider by, those actions where, it is kind of like, that, no, well, that's not fair, and yeah, it creates really good conversations. It creates dialogue. And I know that you're as big, if not more, of a fan of words than myself. And it's how powerful that dialogue and what those conversations then, can be. But in order to even, cultivate some of those conversations, you kind of need to light that fire, and get that spark going, and that moment of foot stamping, and
Mm.
you know frustration and disappointment that others, just that's something that they expect. It's a really, really, beautiful invitation to expanding, that conversation, you know beyond just the podcast here, and bringing it to others as well. So
Yeah, yeah. I think one of the things that also strikes me in picking up again on what you're saying there, it's almost like worthiness strikes back, is a theme, and I've mentioned it in many episodes of like, and I think by the time I got to episode 9 and with Joel Anderson from Formind, and I remember kind of leaning into the microphone and whispering to the listener and the viewer, and saying, "There's curiosity again. Like, something happened in his life, and he got curious about that." Um, and again, like the support structures around, like the established support structures that were taken as kind of like, these are working, this is how it's always been done, this is how it works, and we need to mold and adapt ourselves to fit into something that's no longer fit for purpose. And he's just like, no, fuck that, not doing that, this is stupid, this is not meeting my needs. And sure enough, it wasn't meeting his needs, and it wasn't meeting so many other people's needs. So, and his worthiness is like, no, no, I'm worthy of more than this. I'm worthy of better care. I'm worthy of better help and support than what the established structure around me is providing. And, saw that with the awesome Moana from our team in her chat, right? It's like,
absolutely.
no, I'm worthy of more than this.
And I haven't had a chance to listen to Joel's episode just yet, as that was just the last one there. So he's definitely on the list to catch up on. But yeah, that theme of curiosity as well. So it's that worthiness of knowing that something doesn't serve us, and that something needs to change, But then it's then that curiosity that then opens the door to what that change looks like, and how we're going to then, bring about that change, and what that change, I think one of the things is, often when we have those moments, we don't know what the next step necessarily is going to look like. We just know that
Mm-mm.
a step needs to happen. And I know from my own experience that I can get caught in the thinking as to, well, how am I going to take this? What does it need to look like? Am I going to get this next step right? And at the end of the day, it's more about, am I curious enough? Am I courageous enough to be willing to take a step, even if I don't know if it's quite the right one or in the right direction? But being stuck or staying where I am isn't going to achieve anything. And I know that my worthiness is in question now, and I know that this isn't serving me. So what do I need to do? And for me, that sense of curiosity is just absolutely necessary, because it strips away that fear of judgment of not getting it right, or any of those stories that we tell ourselves, and
Yeah.
kind of it's opened my eyes to just how many awesome ways there are of tackling different challenges and different situations, and each of them are absolutely right. There's,
Yeah.
because it's doing something. And I think, and even like, speaking back to Mona's episode, that was her piece of advice, do something. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter what that
Run
is,
your connection experiment.
but just do something,
Yeah.
and for me, that was also really powerful, because
Yeah.
there's always something that we can do, even if it's something small, and it doesn't matter what that something is. There's always something. And, and maybe that something is actually just stopping for a moment and not doing something, if that makes sense. Because I know that I can be a very hectic overdoer, and, but I'm not a human doing, I'm a human being. So sometimes it's just a matter of stopping and allowing myself to be. Um, so
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Hey, Pete, I love that answer. And I just want to say two things. First of all, when you work out how to stop doing and allow myself to be, when you work that out, and for that to be easy, like, let me know, give me a call, and yeah, I want to know that secret.
There is some good news to that. From what it is quite simple. Um,
Oh,
from what I understand, it's not complex. I've tried to overthink it many times. I haven't managed to outthink it, because it is apparently phenomenally simple, just not easy. So when I find out how to do it with ease, I'll let you know. But I think that therein lies
pointed.
part of the joy in
Mm.
experiencing and navigating it. It's never about the destination. It's always about the journey, and the journey has to have its ups and downs for it to turn into a story.
Oh,
And we connect through those stories. So, we need those.
Pete, that's just beautiful, but God, that's annoying. I just want the answer. I can, be poetic and use nice words and encourage people, but for myself, I just want the answer. So I don't have to enjoy the journey, and I just get straight to I can teleport myself straight to the destination. It's all good. That'll be fine. That's all I want. But the other thing, coming back to what you said before, about being and doing, um, is in taking like not doing anything until we know what the next step is. And you know this, Pete. You and I have known each other for a few years now, and you alluded to it just a few moments ago now in this chat about how us and words are very important. And when it comes to sitting with loneliness, like the words, like I pay attention to the words because the words give us away. And um, not just the words that we say, it's the words that we don't say. It's the how we use the words. It's how we kind of dance around it. And sometimes loneliness is the space between the words, right? That's poetic, isn't it?
Very poetic. I
Yeah,
like that.
yeah. But
I had
but
a, I had a
here,
bodily experience. I had a bodily experience to that, when there are certain things that are said. That's one of the powers of words.
yeah,
Certain words are said in certain ways. It just sort of you feel it.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah. We need to pay attention to how they feel. Like words are weapons. Now I'm going to be quoting Cher, and I don't want to do that, but words are like weapons; they wound sometimes. But what I want to say here is that it's really important when we are at the crossroads, and viewer, listener, you might be listening to this now and you feel like you're at the crossroads. And those crossroads are like, okay, do I do something about like what I'm thinking and feeling in terms of loneliness? Or do I try again with everything that I've tried to do before? We get to those crossroads like quite regularly. We get to all sorts of crossroads in our days. And oftentimes when the doing something different seems pretty scary, we can want to wait until we know how to take the next step. Right? That the is a definite article. To get all grammar nerdy, that's a definite article. It's defined. The next step. But the answer, an answer, is taking a step. Any old step, an indefinite article. Take a step in the direction that you want to go. So take a step in the way towards connection. Assess, take another step. Assess, take another step. That's how we move. Because when we're waiting to take the step and get it right, we could be waiting for a very long time. Pete, I don't know if you heard this as well, just sort of coming back to like language, but for me, one of the things that I found really interesting is when people were bravely and courageously sharing some of their story with us, the pronouns that were used, right? And our loneliness stories happen to us, right? And we connect to stories when they're said in the first person. So first person, I'm getting all grammarly here, but like first person is I, my loneliness. I experienced loneliness when, or I felt really connected when. But quite often, what happens when people are talking about their loneliness, because sometimes it's really uncomfortable, is that it turns into you. It turns into the second person. So, you feel lonely when this happens to you, but they're talking about themselves. It's almost as if they've taken that discomfort out of themselves and talking about it out there. It's about themselves, but they're referring to themselves as you, as the second person.
It's almost like asking for a friend, you know?
Right? Or like giving advice to a friend. It's a bit easier. And I notice that a lot. I notice that a lot. And it goes to the difficulty of talking about some of the things that come up here. And this is not a critique one way or another. If this was in a mentoring call, I'd be calling it out. And I'm like, as I have done to you previously, Pete, and I have done for myself, like from coaches and mentors for me. But it has been, try all of that by saying I. And how does that fit? So viewer, listener, like I get how tough it can be to like own your loneliness story. But unless you own it, it owns you. And one of the things that I simply don't have time for is talking about loneliness and keeping loneliness in the third person, where we talk about loneliness as the concept. That's safe. That's very, very informative, but we don't connect to that. It's connecting to information. It's connecting to, the trick is to take that information and apply it within. And that application within is in the first person.
I think a big thing that I also get from that is often when I will externalize something, and sometimes subconsciously, sometimes consciously, it's often driven by this sense of shame because I don't want to take ownership of it. I feel judged, and usually because it's something that I haven't shared publicly or haven't put it out there, that shame that I feel isn't from anyone else, but it's from myself. It's this sense of shame. And I think, and this is for the listeners, we all experience these moments of loneliness, and we all experience these challenges, and we all go through these different situations throughout our lives, and it's what makes us human. So owning these moments and being able to talk about them in the first person, there is no shame in that, and there is real power in the vulnerability, like we talked about.
Yeah.
And we see that and we admire that in others, but we don't admire that in ourselves. But this is a way of not only connecting with others and having others admire that in ourselves, and not because we want the admiration, but because in those moments, the admiration isn't even something that we are very present to, because we're very much in our own story. But to be able to do that, we need to step out of that shame spiral.
Yeah.
Because
And it's scary. It's scary to sit with it and to allow it to be in that first person. It feels very real. There's no way to hide when you're saying, I feel this, my thoughts, my feelings. Like I totally get it. I totally understand that it's tough, 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 tough. And yeah, I think Jeremy said it well in there's so many things in that episode that he said well, but like, living in the valley of the suck
yes,
and talking about it feels like it puts us right in to like downtown Suck Valley. And population just us. Like and that's horrible. And so I understand why we do it. I understand why we do it. Put it into the second person. But it's just something that occurred to me through the shares, that people were bravely, courageously, and awesomely, and it's something that I just sort of I pay attention to, and I just invite you to pay attention to as well. So Pete, that was your 3. I think there was more than 3 in there. I think.
I don't know. I don't know if there was even 3. I certainly put a lot of words in there, that's for sure. But we'll say there's 3. Let's say that was a nice, well-rounded 3.
Oh yeah, well done, smashed it. And yeah, I think like it was yeah, like there were a lovely 3-ish, 3 approximate. And oh no, 3 approximate, 3 adjacent. And yeah, I think as well, we got some great advice, and you mentioned this as one of your highlights. We got some great advice from all the guests, ranging from give yourself a hug from Peg Fong, and spend some time appreciating art from Guillermo Serrano, and being patient and persisting, and even when connection feels tough. And what did Joe say? Recognizing that you're experiencing loneliness is a huge step in itself. Recognizing that you're experiencing loneliness is a really good first step to then getting the connection that you need. You're well on your way when you recognize that this is what you're experiencing. So, what do you have to add to that gallery of awesome advice? Knowing that, I'll be editing this and this will be going on to socials. Pete's connection advice. Go. What do you have? What advice do you have for the human who's experiencing loneliness right now?
So one of the themes that has come up for me just through this conversation has been around the beauty and the connected nature of telling stories, telling my story, telling our own stories, and bringing that into the first person and sharing that. Because when I hear someone else share something, like I've heard on this podcast, all the different guests share their stories, I feel more connected. And it's a beautiful gift to give to someone else, sharing your story with them as a way of, allowing them to feel connected to you, because we've all got beautiful stories to tell. And some of those don't have to be, particularly, they don't have to be a big hero's journey with, all of the ups and downs. Like sometimes it's the subtle, the small, the what might seem insignificant, but, all of it absolutely helps with connection. So my connection advice from this conversation is reach out, tell someone your story. And that may also be a beautiful gift for them to give them the space to tell theirs.
That's awesome. That's awesome advice. That's awesome advice. And yeah. To you, listener, I just caught myself and I wanted to say this. I'm like, I was going to give some more advice on top of that. But I simply want to invite you to not pay attention to the 27 different ways that just ran through your head about why that's great advice, but it's not for you. Because you probably credits at the end of a sitcom that just kind of fly over the screen. You've probably your mind probably went like that. It's like, oh, Pete, that's lovely advice, but it's not for me, thanks. And here's 1 through 27 ways why that's not going to work for me. Yeah, we can always find ways that things won't work. It just needs to work one way. And we just need to run our connection experiments. Thanks, Mona, for that nugget. Run a connection experiment. Pay attention to those 27 ways, and there might actually be 35 now. Pay attention, write them all down, get them out of your head.
Be curious as to, why those ideas might be coming up for you.
Yeah.
How are they trying to keep you safe right now?
And it's, like me going to the reunion. It's like, oh, I can't go to the reunion because I might actually forget people's names. There's name tags. Okay. I can't go to the reunion because I won't have anything to say. Hi, I'm never short of a thing to say. Never short of a thing to say. It's like, no, I'm really good at finding those hundreds of ways that things won't work because I'm scared. Okay, what do I need? What support do I need? How can I acknowledge that I'm scared and get what I'm worthy of? Even though I'm scared. So yeah, pay attention to those 27 reasons. And it's probably, 72 right now. Pay attention to those and do it anyway. I love that advice, Pete. Thank you so much. Anything else that any other pearl that you wanted to just drop in
Oh, look,
for the viewer and listener before I wrap up?
I think we'll leave it on that high. I think that's but just reminding listeners to also smile at people, which brings us back full circle to the that first episode and that advice shared by the wonderful Phil here as well. So much wisdom, so much wisdom. Go back, have a listen to the episodes. Yeah, there's gold in all of them.
Pete, thanks so much for joining us for this little wrap-up part. And viewer, listener, I'll be back in just a moment with some feedback that we received over the season from you and what you can expect in the next season. But Pete, just thanks so much for being you. Thanks so much for being here and just freely dispensing your wisdom.
Thanks, Phil. Always a good time. We always have good conversations.
I know. Welcome back. Weren't they just amazing conversations? And I just want to let you know that those kind of conversations, talking about serious topics, and in the way that we do them is something that I really love and appreciate about the Humans Connecting team. We do talk about some really heavy stuff and working out ways of reaching you and connecting with you so you know that you're not alone in your loneliness, but also that you're not alone in that kind of eek factor of doing connection when we kind of have to be brave and vulnerable and courageous and we don't want to be, but we know that we've got to do connection. And we have those kind of conversations really regularly here at Humans Connecting. And I'm just really grateful for it. And I'm glad that you could join us for those conversations. It's really lovely to get some responses from you, either through email or through social media, about how the content that we're providing here at the Humans Connecting podcast has supported you to do something and to do connection. And I just want to share some of the feedback that we've received from some of you, our listeners and viewers over this past season. And it's always just fantastic to know that what we're doing is landing with some of you, because let's be honest, it's really intimate doing this podcast, and I love doing it because I'm having a chat with you. I'm in your ears as you go about your day, or when you're going for a walk, or you're listening while driving somewhere in your car, or you're hanging out at home. However you are, it's like me and our guests having a chat with you. But it's also a little weird because here I am standing at a desk talking into a microphone and, we're providing stuff for you. We're providing advice and support for you, but we just don't know if it lands. And so it's just wonderful. We get so excited when we receive some feedback from you about what we're providing, how it's supporting you, and how you're using it. And the first feedback that we got was from A. And I'm not using full names here, but A is in Australia. And they wrote that, and this is about the first episode. So my conversation with Pete, talking about unlocking human connection, which was about my story and how humans connecting came to be. So that's the first episode of this season. And A wrote that by email, that they really resonated with some of the content that Pete and I discussed, particularly when I was discussing with Pete about how challenging it can be to make efforts to do connection while also still making a living. And the feedback then went on saying that that episode of the podcast and my conversation with Pete really hit the mark with A. Where they said that it's like someone finally knew about how I feel, and that they're happy to be moving closer to the resources that can help them and as they own their loneliness. It's a long journey, they write, but they will get there. Yes, A, you will absolutely get there. And A provided some further feedback in response to the episode with Mona, so Mona Potaka, and talking about her experience of loneliness, which was episode 5. And A wrote to us again saying that Mona's share was very powerful about her own story of loneliness. It was extremely powerful, wasn't it? And that they particularly liked her nuggets of wisdom regarding what one puts in to doing connection, one then gets back. And also Mona's advice in there being no cost to experimenting with connection was extremely valuable. So that was episode 5 and A. I know you're listening. It's just great to know that what we're providing is being really helpful for you and helping you think of things, think of loneliness and connection in a different way that inspires you to then go and do connection. The next bit of feedback that we got was from I, also in Australia, and they write that after the episode with Professor Joe Badcock, and which was episode 4, and talking about why we research loneliness. And I wrote, so this is the person I, not me, wrote, just a shout out to the excellent work you're involved in. I've heard the first 2 episodes of your podcast, and it's so great to see the awareness that you're bringing along to this space. It is us as a community who can really bring about changes. Yes, yes, yes. Loneliness and connection, we don't need degrees. We don't need doctorates. We don't need any, we simply need to be human to do connection and to see other humans, to hear them, so other humans feel that they belong, and for other humans to see us and to hear us so we feel that we belong. Simply, we just need to be human. And as a community, that's the thing that we can do absolutely. So thank you, I, for that response. And then the final response that we got was from H in France. He wrote that he listened to our latest podcast on my class reunion, which was episode 6, I think, where I talked about a common connection fear that we have when we go to do about our school reunions. And I shared over an episode some of my experience of loneliness and wanting to stay safe, and shared some of the experiences, the not great experiences that I had in high school that, well, frankly, made me scared to say yes to going to the reunion. And the reunion hasn't happened, as I said in that conversation with both Jeff and Pete. The reunion hasn't happened yet, but it happens in July. And yeah, so it was a tough episode to record. But H said thank you for recording it. And thank you for sharing my courage. Thanks. Yeah, the thing about vulnerability, right? It's awful. It's awful when you never know how it's going to be received. But H said that it was totally worth it to share it, and to both share it so you know that you're not alone, viewer and listener, and to overcome my own fears, as other people were also sharing, also benefiting from me sharing with vulnerability. Yeah, still very uncomfortable. Thank you so much, H, for that feedback. Still very uncomfortable, I have to say, but I do it because I know that there is absolute power in being real about this, and something like a high school reunion, something that has us confronting some uncomfortable memories from our past, can be a source of loneliness. And yeah, I just wanted to share with you some of my thoughts, or not some, a lot, like all of my thoughts, as I navigated through that discomfort. So that's the feedback that we've received. It's just been lovely to receive that, and we're really grateful for it. If you've got feedback on this episode or any other episode, of course, you know where we are. You know how this works. And there's all the links and social media. There's no wrong way to get in contact with us. So that is the end of this season. And the 10 weeks have kind of flown by, and I'm really happy to say that we've pretty much got 10 episodes ready to go, all to do but the recording of some amazing conversations with some guests, and some solo episodes that I wanted to talk with you about in the next season. So there's going to be another 10 episode season in a little while. Not quite sure when that will happen yet, but keep an eye on social media, or indeed become a subscriber to Humans Connecting. And you do that through the website, humansconnecting.org. But the focus of next season is on friendship. And we're going to be talking about how weird and awkward it is to make friends as an adult, with a friendship expert. And we're also going to be talking about connection and belonging in the workplace, and how our workplaces and what we do for a living can be a source of connection and inspiration, but also how they can be a source of disconnection and loneliness, and make us question what we're doing when we've kind of lost our way and have lost sight of our purpose. So that's all going to be in the next season. And as I said, you won't miss anything. If you follow us on social media, you definitely will not miss anything, because you won't be subject to the whims of the algorithm if you subscribe to us at humansconnecting.org. Now, in the meantime, there's a lot going on at Humans Connecting, and we'll be doing finalizing such fun and as exciting things, which but fundamental things like our business plan, so we can then go and put in for funding to help us with our reach and impact that we want to make in the world, our social impact. And all of these kind of things take some time, and the doing of the podcast, while like I love it, it's an absolute blast because it feels like very intimate with you. It takes us so much time and effort that I need to kind of take a step back and do some things that only I can do in our business. But please know that no matter, like, even between the episodes, we are simply right here. We are right here, ready and waiting to support you in any way that we can, to do connection, to help you to become a connected human. So I can't wait to have a chat with you in the next season. And before I go, I want to really say a profound thank you to our guests over this past season. And I'm going to name them all, and just please know that they are absolutely, like, we are just so grateful as a team, and me personally, I'm so grateful that they said yes to jumping on an episode of a very new podcast. And we're really keen, and so very supportive of what we're trying to do and wanting to support you themselves through our podcast here. So I wanted to say thank you to Professor Joe Badcock. I want to say thank you to Mona Potaka from our Humans Connecting team. I also want to say thank you to Dr. Jeremy Goldberg and Peg Fong and Guillermo Serrano and Joel Anderson, as well as Jeff and Pete in this episode. It's simply just amazing to have those conversations with you. And I want to say thanks to all the Humans Connecting team, because listener, viewer, they've recorded the acknowledgement of country, the content advisory, and the ads for this. And for many, it was the first time that they got in front of a microphone and did that. Brave, courageous, bloody awesome. So grateful. Thank you so very much. So that's it for this episode. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode, and indeed all of the first season. As I've said, I simply cannot wait to have another chat with you for another season in a little while. And until then, we're right here to help you to become an awesomely connected human. See you in a little while.